beast in me.
So do you know anything about this place?
Just the address.
Is caged by frail and fragile bars.
Wow.
Restless by day and by night, rants and rages.
Look like Granny likes to play a little pool.
What exactly did Granny do for a living?
I have no idea. I just learned about her yesterday.
The beast in me.
There's a reason they don't call these movies the Texas Curling Iron Massacre.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was just your speech defect.
Oh, maybe. It's a very violent, bloody stutter that I have.
I thought you loved it so much that it left you speechless, and that's the best you could do.
But we
Leon.
are talking about the Texas Midriff Massacre. I mean, Texas Chainsaw.
Texas
Chainsaw.
Texas
No
Chainsaw
Massacre.
Massacre.
Massacre, yes.
Massacre.
Massacre.
Masquerade.
No, this
Masquerade.
is indeed the latest, the 7th in the franchise?
I believe it's actually there is a 4th, and then there were because
7th. Yes,
there's a
seventh
4th.
film
There was a
franchise.
4th movie, then 2 remakes. There's like a remake-wul. I don't know what you'd call it, a requel. And then there's this one. So
Well, like when you take a film, horror is so unique in this concept of like, oh, this film came out at the exact right time that it affected people so deeply that like nothing else matters. We're going to keep making sequels until basically
They beg us to stop.
Yeah, well, no, even past that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
well past that.
I don't watch a lot of horror movies, and I'm definitely a neophyte when it comes to this Texas Chainsaw
Well,
stuff.
the Chainsaw, like the original Texas Chainsaw, when it came out, what year are we talking about here? When the original
1974.
1974 really did affect people pretty strongly, obviously.
So we're talking about even before Halloween, before the birth of the American slasher film, we get Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which woke people up because it was so gritty and it was so raw, and at the time, people still believed that it was a true story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like they say based on a true story. It's like, yeah, the same true story as Psycho, so
Exactly.
work that out for
The
yourself.
Ed Gein
as to
murders. Yeah,
how
right.
true and accurate that is. It's somewhere in between and yet not really either one.
Based on a picture we
close
saw
to
once.
either.
But that being said, the original certainly has had an effect on audiences. It had an effect on me. I saw it well past, the sell-by date as far as an audience member goes. I mean, I saw it well into my 20s when I finally saw it and went, okay, I admit, this is still really a scary film. It's a well-done movie.
No, and I only ask that because I've had people tell me, and I thought you were one of them, maybe you weren't, who've come to me and gone, because I always thought, well, this must be a scary movie, and they're going like, you watch it, it's not really that scary.
Well, that has to do with changing cultural mores, I think.
Yeah.
Like, and at the time, I mean, this was like the progenitor road trip gone bad horror film.
Okay.
And that is a trope that is still stuck around because of, in my opinion, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's also, what's incredible about it is despite the fact that it is called Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's very little gore in it, just having to do with Tobe Hooper like trying to get an R rating instead of an X, like scaling back a little too much,
Which
and then
would
just
be-
deciding, well, I'll just leave it that
Which
way.
would be PG-13 by today's
Oh,
standards.
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
But what makes it so iconic is it's the sound of the chainsaw is a universally terrifying thing, one. And Gunnar Hansen's Leatherface is just so unsettling in so
Absolutely.
many different ways.
I mean, you talk about like that whole idea of somebody, despite you never really seeing their face, you're seeing a mask over them, their body language, everything about them, everything they're doing being truly frightening. Gunnar Hansen, more so than any actor after him, which many have, of course, played Leatherface, has really, really captured that chaos, that anarchy, that like inbred, not West Virginia, Leon, but
I wasn't going to say anything.
If not West Virginia,
style.
then where?
then Texas,
Texas.
where you're from.
Oh, yeah. I was born in D.C.
And what's the other thing that's great about his performance is that he does add a little bit of a sympathetic note to it. I think Tobe Hooper described him as Baby Huey. Like, he's just kind of this big, crazy baby that lives in the house.
Yeah, but the problem here with this Texas Chainsaw 3D, which is
You already said it.
which is
3D.
Yeah, well, no, that's not the problem.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
That's not the biggest problem.
But the problem is that like they're selling it like okay, which I think is a good idea of saying like fuck all those other sequels. including Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which I thought was actually pretty fun.
That's
for
the
what
only
it
one
was.
I'd seen prior.
That's the Evil Dead 2 to the Evil Dead, in the
Right.
sense of like, let's just make it a goofy, over the top comedy type of thing, and like just so ridiculous that you can't help but laugh. With Dennis Hopper with like an 8-foot chainsaw. I'm sorry, who doesn't want to see that? I know I want to see that, and sure enough, I
didn't really
enjoyed
want to
that.
see that.
I enjoyed it. It's fun for what it is, but that.
But even that doesn't have a lot of chronological connection to like it's like 12 years later, and the only real connection is that Dennis Hopper is playing the uncle of Sally Hardesty and Franklin.
Yeah.
I mean it's the same family, the same Sawyer family, but that's really the only connection between the two
here
movies.
the idea is a great idea. Like, fuck all that other stuff. Let's just go where the sequel takes off, right where the original left off. Like, let's stop right at that point where Sally, the one surviving member, is running off. She's ran off screaming. The credit sequence, we are seeing like little pieces in the original film reshot, like not reshot, but like, you know, reconfigured,
Post-converted
in 3D,
into 3D.
post-converted into 3D. We're seeing little bits with the new actors that they had to put into it to, you know, because some people weren't alive anymore, or certainly weren't the right age anymore to be able to be filmed for this post sequence. Let's, you know, insert them into that. It works. You're like, this is kind of exciting to watch this start this way with this climactic ending. We're watching the whole events of the first film compressed.
Previously
and
on
then,
Texas Chainsaw.
Exactly. And then going like, okay, here's what's going on. It starts with a bang. Like,
I thought that was a great, you know, kind of remix of what they did to make that old footage. Like, what those clips of the old footage they put in there were genuinely terrifying to me.
Plus, they looked, as much as I hate post-converted 3D, they looked pretty damn
they
good.
did look pretty good. Goddamn.
And the 3D had this look like old technology 3D.
Yeah.
That was consistent and gave it that feel like I was really watching something from that era. I just dug the hell out of it. I was like, man, I usually don't like these things. Although, I gotta say, I don't know how unpopular it is, but I really did love that first remake of Texas Chainsaw.
I liked it.
I did too.
Okay. I thought I was alone because I was like, that's one of the few movies I found scary.
You know, I liked it too. We were there together.
Yeah. No, I know you liked it.
We were both like, okay, I got to admit that kind of scared the shit out of me.
Yeah. I mean, that's my fear, being stuck in some small redneck town. But with this, the way
with no barbecue.
Yes, but the way it did all that, I was like, this is really cool. I'm kind of into this.
Well, yeah, because like the promise of this, like this is a direct sequel. Fuck all that other shit. This is where we go. Here's what happened right after, and that's what we're getting at first. We're like, oh goddamn, they're actually going to do a whole horror movie that takes place right after this. What happens next? But no.
Yeah.
Outside of a cute little Gunnar Hansen cameo, who originally played, of course, Leatherface, and of a Bill Moseley cameo.
Who's in Texas
there,
Chainsaw 2.
Who was Texas Chainsaw 2. It like gives you about 10 minutes of what you want from this,
Right.
and then goes a really unrealistic amount of time later.
And it's the epitome of what's wrong with this movie, with that opening sequence, because you have all these people that were involved in the original Texas Chainsaw or Texas Chainsaw 2 who are making these cameos, and it's a great idea, like the lynch mob of the town showing up at the Sawyer house. They're just fucking fed up with it, and they're going to get their vengeance. And you have all these faces that you recognize. In fact, Jim Dugan, I believe is his name, who played the grandfather in the original, is back as the grandfather again,
And barely there.
and they're all barely used. It's like, okay, now we're done with that, and we jump ahead to, I'm sorry, what feels like a really conventional 90s era slasher film.
I mean, all right, so the original film takes place in, what, 74?
74.
74. So, like, we get the conceit that, like, some of these rednecks who are lynching the house with all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre people right at the end of the first one came back, as you'd expect when the cops show up, go, like, which is something they never really, you always were like, well, why wouldn't the cops have dealt with this situation originally?
Right.
So they do deal with that obvious question. Some of the rednecks find a baby, kill the mother, and take the baby. Flash to modern day, which the baby would by all means be
Around 40.
my age.
Yeah.
But no, she's like 22.
She's a ridiculously hot 20-something.
Alexandra Daddario, who is indeed super ridiculously hot. I believe when we were reviewing her movie
Percy Jackson?
Percy Jackson, when she was in that, I was sitting there going like, I don't know if she's of age or not, but
I don't know.
She's fucking hot.
I don't know how you guys can lust after her. She looks like the floor of a bar around 2 a.m. And
No, you're crazy.
Yeah, you're
she
nuts.
looks like if you touch her, she'd be sticking. She's wearing way too much Texas Chainsaw mascara, for one thing. And it's just, and she's like this weird, like, hippie artist chick, even though she was raised by, like, the most conservative rednecks on the planet.
I'm not even talking about her character. She's a porcelain doll of awesomeness. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
She's
I
just-
mean, as a physical specimen, she was.
As a physical specimen.
She's quite something. I mean, yeah, you talk about her character. I mean, it did make no sense that you're right. She's a total indie artist hipster chick
Well,
who
which
was
is
raised by the dumbest toothless rednecks you could imagine.
Which is important, like that whole like idea, like to show her like early. Oh, she still has a redneck background. She is, even though she's moved to the city and now she's an indie chick and likes to like just wear half shirts everywhere she goes. She makes
God bless her.
sculptures out of like chicken bones and stuff.
Yeah, she works at in the butcher shop of a grocery store.
Yeah.
So I guess she hasn't strayed too far from her.
Yeah,
roots.
I mean, like, it did, like, right from the beginning, it's telegraphing everything that's going to happen
It
to the
is.
rest of the film, which would be fine if it made sense if she was some psycho chick. But she's not. She's actually the most reasonable one among her group of friends that decide that they're going to go on this road trip after they find out that she has inherited a house from a grandmother she didn't know existed, because up until the film started, she didn't even know she was adopted. But turns out, no, she has this whole other family that we know about, because we saw the intro.
Yeah.
That, like, oh, you inherited this shit. So they all go out there to this house, and it turns out it is a mansion. Why this family would have a mansion is another question.
a fully furnished mansion.
I mean, a badass mansion.
Yeah, like as creepy as you might go. Like, I don't know, I wouldn't go to that house. Once you're inside, you're like, yeah, I totally come in here.
But they go there and they're like, all right, let's party. It's going to be great. We were going to go to New Orleans, but fuck that. This is awesome, which is exactly what I would do in that situation. It's like, God damn, this place is amazing. Let's just stay here.
Yeah.
Of course, it doesn't take long for the hitchhiker that they picked up along the way.
Hey, remember how that's not a good idea to pick up hitchhikers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, who they not only don't realize that's not a good idea, but they like go, hey, we're gonna go in town to get supplies. Why don't you just stay here and hang out while we...
And this mansion full of swag.
Well,
Yeah.
the whole idea, even like for all the momentum that the movie had when it started, that momentum comes to a screeching halt once you meet our real players, these young kids.
Cookie Cutter 1, Cookie Cutter 2.
Yeah,
you know.
and one played by a singer. What's his name?
Trey Songz.
Yeah.
And I have to point this out. At one point in the movie, they are playing a Trey Songz song while Trey Songz is on screen,
That's
which
not
is
right.
difficult to say
Not
and
right.
difficult to watch.
But once you
don't
meet them,
approve.
it's that screeching halt. And it's like, oh, wow, hardly any of them are any good in this scenario. And I go like, oh, I get it. This is a sequel to Cabin in the Woods, and we're going to see the behind the scenes on how this gets manipulated. Because the only thing that makes sense for them to pick up that hitchhiker to begin with, the guy is clearly a scam artist, but they go like, hey, come along and stay in the house while we go pick up stuff, and I'm sure you won't steal anything. Where he decides, I'm going to steal everything.
Yeah, and you're right. It's like watching another scenario for the technicians of Cabin in the Woods that
Yeah.
went really well for them, actually.
Yeah.
But you watch him, like, this bizarre setup to the scenario, like, where we're all going, like, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
What's going to happen next? Goes down, like, finds out there's a big door in the basement, unlocks it, here's Leatherface. The most uninteresting Leatherface in the history of the character, and that is really
Lackluster
saying
face.
something. Seriously, faux Leatherface.
Yeah. Pleatherface.
Leatherface, exactly. Who goes on and starts killing, of course, all the people that that Pleatherface is supposed to kill.
Welcome to Texas, motherfucker!
Did you hit him?
I don't know.
Did you hit him?
I don't know.
But the thing you have to remember here is that, as they keep reminding you, is that this character Alexander Daddario is playing, Heather Miller, has this birthmark on her chest, which doesn't seem to be tied into any like traditional birthmark thing?
Well, no,
is there
it's-
something
no,
I'm
no, no,
missing?
no,
It's
no,
because she
it's-
was burned.
Yeah,
and
and
her mother was wearing the Sawyer family emblem
Okay.
necklace.
All right, is that what that is?
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
Oh, it's bullshit, but that's what it is.
All right, fair enough. Because I was like, I'm not sure, but no one else seems to have. Okay, but regardless, we know this is going to play heavily into the story. Forget about all that for a second. And let's talk about the setup based on what we saw in the past with the rednecks who defied the Blacktown sheriff and burned down and lynched the local
The
family.
Blacktown sheriff? You mean the world's most ineffectual sheriff?
Yeah.
who does nothing but like, man, you need to not do that, or else
He might as
I'm going
well.
to tell
Or
you
else I'll
again.
grimace at you.
I'm going to tell you again.
He might
that
as
you
well
should have
just
done
have
that.
been a Tootsie Roll, seriously, before all the effect he had with anything. The mayor of this town, who is like the most I mean, there's not a reality show that's had a redneck more exaggerated than this.
And what I
guy.
love about this entire storyline about this lynching and this cover up, all of it is in an evidence box that they keep at the police station, including what everyone said, what everyone did. I'm like, you are fundamentally missed the point of a cover up. Because all of the information about what happened is just sitting in a box at the police station so that she can find it and then we can get a flashback to what she's reading about, even though we've already seen it. And they can be like, oh, and he said this and he did that, and then we covered it up. No, you did not! You documented it!
You know, it's a shame because I think that early on in this film, there was a point that I was actually still giving it credit for trying to do something a little different.
Same here.
I was walking through this going like, okay, you're not just doing yet another fucking Texas Chainsaw remake. I mean, yeah, we liked that initial, Leon and I both really enjoyed that initial remake where they were like, we're going to go super dark and gritty, and it did in fact work. I thought
yeah.
that was a good
Because
film.
it's still about building a monster. That remake is still about building a monster. And this is just about, oh, well, the monster's just in the basement. Just let it out, and it'll do it. Like,
and a really
boring.
boring monster.
Yeah.
You know, and all right, so I could have forgiven almost anything if it wasn't for what happens in the third act, which you can see telegraphed from a billion miles away, but you keep hoping it's not where they're going to go. You have to swallow your disbelief to a point that I was
You choke on it?
I was just sitting there giggling in not a funny way, in a sort of like, seriously, please tell me there's something else. There's a dream sequence or something. What do you really expect us to believe that blood is that tight?
Yeah, I you know what? I would have been giggling in the third act if not for the fact that in the second I was still had that shred of hope. I shouldn't have had it. It's one of those things where like I'm mad at the film, but I'm really mad at myself.
Well, you were liking the girl.
Well,
I know I was.
Well, that's
too.
because-
I was kind of partial to both girls, but especially
at various points, her half shirt becomes a quarter shirt, becomes an eighth shirt, becomes a 16th shirt. It's like some kind of weird reverse ball drop on New Year's Eve where it just gets higher and higher and higher, and they keep teasing the side boob.
but that goddamn spirit gun.
Well, it's Tanya Raymond who was Alex Rousseau
From
in
Lost.
in Lost,
Yeah.
who I always thought was hot even then.
Right.
Who was the daughter who died tragically on Lost. Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. And I was like, oh my god, she's so fucking hot here, which the director never forgets to remind you.
Every time she's going to enter a scene, they set the camera up at crotch level.
Every
time.
and a tracking shot
Yes.
of it. Like it's not enough to like go like she just walked into the scene at ass level. No,
No.
the camera's like, oh, I'm gonna follow that shit.
And the first time they do it, you're like, okay, maybe that's a nod to the original film where there's a shot like that. By the 8th time they do it, like, oh no, the filmmaker's a sleaze is what's going on.
Well, yeah, and the fact that both her and Alexandra Dario the whole time are wearing half-shot shirts, and oh my god, talk about focusing. I mean, like, I like navels as much as the next guy, but dude,
There's a lot of navel gazing going on in this movie, as it turns out.
it's
Well,
like,
it wasn't our theater.
I don't know. I there was so much hope for me in this at a point where I was like, this could actually turn into an interesting film. This is trying to do something different. And the problem is that it was trying to do something different that made absolutely no fucking sense at all.
The script is abysmal, and the dialogue especially is as rancid as meat you leave out in the sun for 5 days. Like, you have characters that just say things like, no human being talks like that. No, like, not even no teenager. No human being would say that. This has one of the, like, this is going to be a meme line, I guarantee you by the end of the year. I can't even say it because it'd be a spoiler, but there is a line of dialogue toward the end of the movie, and when you hear it, you will know, and you'll go, oh, really? Shit.
Well, assuming anyone actually goes to see this film. But you were pointing out something earlier about like having been on set. You actually got to go on set for this, and they were all so proud about how like, oh look, we've got a black character as a main
they were
character.
so proud of the fact they were patting themselves on the back so hard about this interracial couple that's leading the movie, and I'm like, oh, you mean Trey Songz, who's a complete douchebag and cheats on his girlfriend at every chance he gets? That's the black character
His
you wrote that
character
you're really
in the
proud
film.
of?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, why don't you pat yourself on the back again, asshole?
How advanced of you as a white person to do that?
Yeah. And it's not even like a troubled relationship kind of thing. Like, everything's fine, and the first time a girl shows him tits, it's like, oh, well, I guess I gotta cheat. I am black.
Them's the rules.
I'm like, what the fuck?
I will give him a little bit of credit there, like just that character. The fact that it's Tanya Raymond who doesn't just show him his tits, she lays a trap.
Yeah, but it's the lamest goddamn. Like, Akbar would be like, really? That's a trap?
I don't know. I admit, I was like, okay, I mean, all right, so if my girlfriend wasn't Alexandra Daddario, I probably would have fallen back a little bit on that one. Like, no, fuck no, but come on, man, like, it's like, that was a good trap.
That was a really
She
good trap.
laid out a bottle of tequila and took all her clothes off, and I'm like, hey, who's gonna?
Let us be clear about this. She strips down to her underwear because for some reason this is the only R-rated horror movie that is afraid of actual nudity.
It really is.
It's so
that was the
bizarre.
thing that threw me off. I mean, if there's one thing, something that really bothered me was how it was very free with the gore and just getting right in there to the point of being stomach turning.
Yeah.
And yet, with the nudity, it was like, no, can't quite do
yet,
that.
as a horror movie aficionado and a gore aficionado, it was kind of weak even in that. It was like, when it would do it kind of half-heartedly, and when it was setting up for the big scenes that were actually, some of them were well set up. Like, there's a big death right at the end of it that you're like, okay, as much as I'm not with this movie, I want to see how this is going to play out. They switched from being a largely practical film to an entirely ridiculously poorly done CG sequence that takes every bit of impact out of the sequence it could be there.
It was that moment where it crossed over for me.
Yeah.
Where I was like, okay, there's no place for me to have any hope or good feeling about this.
And I didn't go into this movie thinking it was going to be bad, but there were red flags from being on the set, one of which was that the producer was doing most of the directing. And I was like,
most of the coke, probably.
Probably most of the coke. And the other thing is, like, we got this sense from being there that, like, all these people from the original films are going to play such a huge part of the movie, and then they're just wasted, especially Marilyn Burns, who is talked about throughout the whole movie.
Who played the survivor of the original film.
She's there, Sally. Yeah, she's Sally, and she's mentioned throughout the whole movie. And then when we finally see her, it's okay. First of all, when she gets to this mansion, when our heroine gets to the mansion, she's handed a letter by the woman who left her the mansion, and the lawyer says it's really important that you read this. Guess what she doesn't do? Read the letter. Guess what's in the letter? Hey, by the way, there's a guy in the basement that you should be looking after.
Now, to be fair, it does say that, but at no point does that letter say, and he's a homicidal maniac who uses chainsaws, and don't bring any of your friends around.
They might want to. That could be an important little addendum.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing.
But then she's like yelling, like Alexandria Daddario's yelling at the lawyer later. Why didn't you tell me? And he's like, bitch, I gave you the letter.
Well, all right. So I'm going to move to the review here. I feel like Alexandra Daddario actually does her best in this film. I don't think she's bad in this movie. I really don't. In fact, I think outside of the fact that I think she is really hot here, and I don't know if those are her real eyes or she was wearing contacts, but it works for her. She looked great.
Or if, pursuant to the Sawyer family, she's wearing someone else's eyes.
Yeah, indeed. Well said, Brian Salisbury.
There he goes. He's on fire.
And I think that I appreciate the fact that they're not trying to just do another generic remake. They want to change things up. But my God, it's not enough to just say, I want to do something different. It still has to be believable to some extent. And they just went, no, it's enough that we're doing something different. And that's where this movie falls apart, almost in every scene of it. I wish I could have liked this. There are moments here and there that I went, oh, that was fun, or even just laughed. I will say, and we didn't say this at all yet, but I thought the 3D was in a sort of classic old school 80s 3D with that sort of like so silly that I can't help but have fun with it. Like, it didn't look like good 3D, but the fact they'll like keep throwing the chainsaw at your face.
And at one point, just a finger, just some guy pointing. It's like, okay.
Was really goofy old school 3D style that is so evident. That's so evident that's what they were trying to do with it that I had to give them points for trying to do that kind of a 3D. I'll give it a little bit for that, but ultimately this is a low rental.
Huh. I agree with you on every single thing you just said, except for one, which actually makes it not every single thing, so I shouldn't even say that. But
Texas Chainsaw backtrack.
But you brought up almost every point that I could, and I haven't seen certainly don't know enough about the Texas Chainsaw legacy to be the kind of guy who knows what's bad or what's not. I don't watch enough horror movies, so I just come into it cold to just try to go along and let some things slide that I normally wouldn't. And even with that, there came that point in the third act where I'm like, I've given this every chance and tried from every way I could, and I've tried to stay with it. But what's happening now is killing it. I had it at a low rental. I mean, I had it at a high rental, and then a medium rental, and then a low rental. And by the time we get to the point where it's just doing
the gamut of rentals.
Yeah. But at the point where it switched from practical effects to CG effect, the CG blood, and went so overboard with it, I'm like, man, you've given me no choice but to give this some old bullshit. Now, it's not simply that I go like, oh man, CG, that's some old bullshit. It's also the story got so ridiculous and stupid and left so many loose ends. It's like, there's a bunch of dead bodies that are never accounted for, and they just kind of go like, whatever, it's going to work out this way.
Not to mention the son, the cop son of the mayor, who just kind of wanders off the story at the end.
Who, by the way, is played by Clint Eastwood's kid.
Really?
Yeah. That is Clint Eastwood's son, and that was one of the things on set. Talking to him for 5 minutes, I looked at him and was like, oh, you're Clint Eastwood's kid. Just because in the face, it's like, oh, I can. But yeah, you're right. He just wanders off into the night like he's wandering into the cornfield in Field of Dreams.
It makes no sense.
Wait, yeah, that makes no sense. But also, there's the parents of her friends who might wonder, like, hey, where'd my son go?
Did you hear Trey Songz's last album? I don't think his parents are going to wonder where he is.
The sequel is a legal thriller.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Law and Order.
And I'm sorry, that was a low blow. I apologize to Mr. Three Songs, as his English translated name would be.
But yeah, it's for me, it's just some old bullshit.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I wanted this movie to be good. I wanted this movie to be no. I'll take that back. I wanted this movie to be entertaining. That's really all I wanted from it, because at this point, I think that the Chainsaw franchise is pretty dead. Like, I think it's time we move on from it.
I think you're right.
And I think this movie solidifies that argument. All the stuff they did at the beginning, all of this like teasing of being reverent to canon, and then we just smash cut to the most conventional, the most cliche horror movie with an absolutely idiotic script, characters we don't care about, and yeah, the most lackluster Leatherface that we've had. And I even count the guy that played Leatherface in Next Generation in that
no
field.
This guy is worse.
Yeah, this guy's much worse. And I got to the end of it and I'm like, why should I care? I mean, I'm being force fed the same crap I've seen over and over again with the Texas Chainsaw name slapped on it. So I absolutely give it some old bullshit. And the one thing, and this is, kind of an unfair thing to criticize it on because most people don't know this, but they were shooting a scene where they actually had the driver of the Black Maria. Cyrus, I'm sure you remember the truck from the end of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The scene that we were seeing them film, they actually were hanging that guy on a hook like they had caught him. And like that was such a neat connection to the original story, and then that's just completely cut out of the movie. And it's like, once again, you're pretending that you care about, about canon and about continuity, but you really don't. That's why your character would be 41. That's why, for some reason, there's Wi-Fi in Leatherface's house and can allow for FaceTime. Like, there's all this shit that just, like, expecting us to swallow this is insulting, and this is some old bullshit on all kinds of levels.
It is really convenient, though, and pretty considerate for like a murder house in Texas to provide Wi-Fi for their victims to be able to say goodbye to their family.
I think it was 4G.
They couldn't have done FaceTime if it was 4G.
That's true.
Aha!
That's true.
That's not an aha moment. There are 30 other aha moments in this movie.
Well, you could check in on Foursquare to place I'm going to die.
Unmarked grave. I'm the mayor.